from Mother Fiction Writers Podcast. I'm Stevie, and Stacy again is not here. I think starting next month, she's going to be here one time a month, so that's exciting. She'll still be on, but I'll be still kind of talking. And today, I have Taylor. She's a bookstagrammer. It began with the stars. You can find her under that name. I'll try and link it below too. I'm not the best at linking things, but I will. So you can find her there. But I'm going to let her kind of introduce herself and how many years you've been on Bookstagram. And then we're going to talk about Fourth Wing and some of our favorite underrated books. So I'm going to pass it over to Taylor.
Well, thank you very much. I'm super excited to be on this podcast with you. I've never done anything like this before, so that's really exciting. Gosh, how long have I been on Book Talk or on Bookstagram? I honestly can't remember. I think maybe 2019 is when I started. Okay. But I didn't start like getting more heavily into it until like 2021 probably. So yeah.
So just kind of randomly post and then really heavily posted after 2021?
Yeah, I think so. Because I started seeing, it was really when I started getting into book boxes. That's when I started to post a lot. Yeah. I discovered like some of those, and then I met a bunch of people. So yeah.
Yeah, because those are fun. You want to show those off. When I first started, I used to get a bunch of them too. And then I was like, now I'm overwhelmed with the amount of stuff I have.
I know, exactly. I just have like so many things.
I'm like, I don't have space anymore. So I had to cut it out for a little while. There's a few I want to, but now everything is so listed. You know, I would definitely be on a list. Yeah. Well, that's exciting because I came in around 2020 and I can't remember where we kind of started, but we've definitely, I feel like it's been like at least 2 years that we've been connecting because we read Buddy Read a year ago. And
was that already a year ago?
I think so. I think it was like last summer. I know.
My gosh, that's crazy.
I know. Time goes so fast when you're reading books. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what, I don't know. I'm very like open on Bookstagram and stuff. And so I probably just liked your photos and was like, hey, let's be friends.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's how it happens a lot of times. Like I've definitely done that too, where I'm just like, I really like this person. They seem cool for their posts. And then you're just like, let's be besties. Like, I don't know.
Right. It's like, then you just first start commenting. That's what I love about the community. It really is so welcoming, so open. Everyone's just there to talk books and like, and also so helpful for authors too. And indie authors. So much like promotion for that and love. So it's great community. Yeah. And then we were supposed to buddy read for this one. Yeah. And then it kind of like, I don't know, it just turned into, I'm like, I need to jump on the Fourth Wing bandwagon here. And I asked you, I was like, have you read that yet? And you had already. And that was a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, that was right around Memorial Day weekend was when I read it. I actually read it in a day. So
yeah, it is that. I was just talking to you right before we got on. We were talking about how it's the type of book you want to binge.
Yeah.
And that is, I mean, I believe it because it's such a fast, especially once you get to like the dragon parts. Like I was talking about, it just is after that, it's just like boom, hits and never stops.
Yeah, it just really takes off from there.
Yeah. So I am going to put out a warning. If anyone hasn't read Fourth Wing, we're not going to hold anything back. We're just going to be open and honest about all of it from the start to the beginning. So there will be spoilers.
Yes, spoiler warning for sure.
Right. Yeah. I feel like I'm going to have to put that like in the caption, like spoiler warning for Fourth Wing.
Yeah, but I feel like everyone and their mother has like read the book now, right? Like
I know. It is. It is. It blew up. I didn't, like I said, once I started seeing it, of course I was like, that seems like something up. I mean, just say dragons and I'm there anyways. But then I was like, whoa, everybody is just blowing up. And it's literally it's been weeks and it's still constant, which is awesome. It's a great book. And my favorite part, okay, let's each talk, maybe start off by saying, what was your favorite thing about this book? What was like the thing that really drew you in?
It was the dragons, especially Taryn, like his like sassy like comments that he would have.
I love that. I know. He like held nothing back. He was not afraid.
He's just kind of like a grumpy old man, like like at a daycare, like herding cats. Like, I don't know. I just loved him.
He was so good. I mean, I love that they were in their heads, that they could talk to them. I mean, that what's better than that? And he definitely, from the get-go, was like, I chose you and I'm doing what I want. This is where we're taking this, like,
yeah,
it was good. So I could even kind of twist that or jump on to that same thing. So the dragons, I feel like anyone is probably going to say the dragons were just the best. But I didn't just love the main dragons, but I loved every single description and how the dragons gave people powers. I thought that was super cool.
Yeah, that was a really cool, like, intimate connection that they had. That was just like, don't think I'd ever really seen that before, where like they get powers from the dragons. So
right, usually it's more like maybe if the person already has magic or the dragon has magic, and then it makes it stronger, but not that you're not even sure what magic is going to come out of it until you're connected. Like, that was super cool. I like
and like it'll change based on which person they have. Like the dragons have multiple riders, and they all have different things. So that was really cool.
That was really cool. So that would probably be my definite favorite part. And I think a lot of us women could probably say Xaden as well.
I think that's probably a safe bet.
I think so, yeah. Yeah, he was definitely written just the way you want someone like him to be written, because he starts off in a typical like, I'm so angry and we're going to be enemies and stuff. And then, of course, the son of a traitor and stuff and everything. So, but then as their connection builds and stuff, then you see like the best side, where it's like he's literally self-sacrificing and the kind of guy you're like, yes, this connection is best.
Yeah, he's kind of like a secret cinnamon roll. Like he's like really got a really tough exterior, and like I thought like, okay, he's just gonna be like broody bad boy the whole time, but like he's really got quite a soft and gooey center, and I loved it.
And after the dragons connect, it was almost like, so I also thought that the fact that the two dragons, their dragons, were mated, I thought was a really cool. I did not see, there's a lot of, so the writing to me was very predictable, but in a good way.
Yeah.
Like, it was in a way that, like, just because you see it coming, it's still written really well. And it was the type of writing that's like needed to further the story. You know what I mean? Like, obviously this is going to happen. But then that one was a twist that was like, oh, that's cool. Very interesting. The whole mated thing, and then gave them even a better reason to be together, I guess.
Yeah, it was a really unique way of doing forced proximity, which is like one of my favorite tropes. So when I saw that, I was like so giddy. I was so excited. Like, yay, they have to hang out with each other now.
Yeah. I was the same way. I was like, okay, this is really gonna be, and I loved how there was that one point towards the end, or a little towards the end, where they go and they see her sister and like that stuff. And then he shows up and he's like, apparently it's only 3 days that we can be apart, you know?
Yeah, and so I kind of wonder, I was like, was that Xaden not being able to go 3 days, or was that, his dragon?
Right. Was that really the dragon, like he said? Or was it just their connection? Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
No, I really liked them together. And then I could go deeper into like their actual like love scene too. Like, talk about a cinnamon roll in there. Like, most of the time it's all like raw and angsty and like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But even though I had like that kind of stuff, like one of the lines was so good where it's like something about like surprisingly the only thing we didn't mess up was the bed or whatever, you know.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you just like, you cute little adorable doofus, you like.
Right, he was always like he's always calling her beautiful, and that she like he was praising that isn't like praise, but in like a really loving like cinnamon roll way. It was very cute. It was cute.
Yeah, not to mention the nickname that he has for her, which
yes.
I love a good nickname.
That was good. And then even when he would say, for those listening, and if you don't care about spoilers, because I know I do that sometimes, I'll be like, I just want to listen anyways. Her nickname is Violence, and her name is Violet. And even through the entire rest of the book, honestly, all I ever heard was violence. Mm-hmm. I was like, that's all I hear right now. It was so cute. I liked that too.
Yeah, it was unique, and the play off of her name, which I don't think you see super often. They usually just like do something completely different. So that's why I really liked it.
It was really, really unique. And I thought a lot of stuff about this, the way the book was written was kind of like that, was really a play on things and a really unique and like very well written and stuff. Like I said, even though the only complaint I've seen in reviews is people being like, I knew everything that was going to happen and all this stuff. Oh, seen this before. And I'm like, okay, but you never saw it written like this. Like it was really well done, you know?
Yeah, and even for me, like if something is predictable, like because you read enough books, you see enough things, you kind of can predict a lot of different things that are going to happen.
Yeah.
But like if my heart is still racing and I'm still like wanting to binge it in a day, like I don't care if I can predict everything because I'm still having such a great time.
Right, exactly. And the truth about it is every book comes from some other like idea, really. You know, that's where you're pulling from everything. And it could be a mixed match of all ideas and stuff too. But it's really how that person puts that in play and how they write the characters. And I thought the characters were really well done. And I love the sister. Like I really enjoyed her a lot. And then the very ending was like, I mean, once they were like talking, and then there was like the rebellion and like that stuff was going on, you almost want to be like, there's something coming. But I'm not necessarily sure that I was like jaw on the floor, but I wasn't necessarily also like, I knew that. You know what I mean? That was a very cool way to end it.
Yeah, I honestly was a little jaw on the floor with the brother.
Yeah. I mean, that being the very end thing, that it was just kind of like, wow, okay then. Now where's book 2?
I thought like I just like you thought that there was gonna be like some big thing at the end. And I thought it was gonna be like, oh, we have this like way bigger army than like you ever could have imagined. Like we're gonna take over, you know? But no, which they might still have that, I don't know. But like it was my brother. So that's just like I was like, oh my gosh.
Well, that's why, because he was so like in that last little bit, he was so sure that she was gonna be on his side, you know? And then you're like, oh yeah, that's why she's gonna be on his side. Okay.
Yeah, but she's also gonna be just like so pissed because like
he is. Oh yeah.
He made them go through that he was dead, and that would be really devastating. And then just another betrayal to tack on because she's already rethink from them like joining are they Griffin Riders? Yeah.
Yep. Well, and like she said, how can I trust you? You know, like he's like something about, but you still love me. And she's like, but I don't trust you. So there's a big thing there. There's a big gap, a hurdle. Yeah. So it will be, but we really don't have to wait that long for book 2. Is it coming out in fall, or did I just hear that wrong?
I think it's supposed to come out in the fall, but honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it gets pushed back a little bit because that seems really soon for a traditionally published author.
It does. I know. I was very shocked because I was even shocked to see the cover reveal already.
That was really
stuff.
soon.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if she had already, like, it makes me want to maybe dive deeper into how she wrote these books and how she got the the green light to be the okay, we're going to sign you and stuff. If she had already been like, hey, I'm done with book 1 and I have book 2, like, basically done. That's like, how I can see it come out.
She have mapped out beforehand and like how much like, oh, this book is really popular. Okay, let's make it like as long as we can. Because I think it's supposed to be like 5 books or something like that.
Well, I guess I didn't hear that. That's exciting. I could see a lot of books like this where you have the rebellion and the big world. I mean, it is world building, but the big armies and the different stuff. Well, and then you've got the different types of dragon. Well, you got the dragons, the wyverns, the griffins, all that. That alone is super cool. I mean, dragons and griffins are like 2 of my favorite things that you don't see especially griffins. You really don't see them very often.
No, you really don't.
And you should. So everyone who writes, let's jump on the griffin bandwagon.
Yes, I want to see some griffin riders.
Yeah. And then the wyverns. So like people often debate the Game of Thrones dragons, if they're wyverns or dragons, because technically they just have the 2 feet and not the 4, and dragons are supposed to have the 4. So I think that's pretty cool that this book brought in the true like difference of them in a way, kind of a thing. So that was kind of neat to see as well. What else was the daggers? I like the daggers too. I could never get enough of a wielding, like, badass girl character with daggers. I do like that.
Yeah, that's honestly a guilty pleasure of mine also, because like if there was one thing that I would want to have, it would be a set of pretty daggers. So
I just like have them just strapped on and you can like, chuck them like.
But my favorite thing is like when they just have them hidden everywhere and they just like keep pulling them out. Like that's why I love
like Inez. Inez, that's her. You don't know where she even pulled them out of her hair, behind her ear, just everywhere. Yeah, I like that as well. There's a character that I've written, and she's not in any of the books that are like out on Bella or anything, but she is like that. But trying to write someone who's just like and make it sound good, like where they're pulling it from and how they have it strapped, even though they're in a skirt or a tight pants or whatever, It's really fun.
Think about the logistics of like keeping that much metal on you.
Right. And not stabbing yourself too. Like, because that would be me. I'd be like, oh, great. Now I have cuts everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, because you often see like female characters, if it's not that they have harness like magic and stuff like that, it's usually a bow, which is also cool. I like that. But I think there's something a little bit more hardcore, I guess you could say, with the daggers. I do like that.
Yeah, because you have to be like more close up to be able to actually fight somebody, unless you're throwing them, but still, like you can't be that far away to throw it.
Yeah. Well, and then I do like that he had a specific one made for her, a specific type. I can't even remember what it was, like just the way she held it. Wasn't that what it was? How she could grip it?
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, that was really sweet. I was like, oh, I love a good weapon gifting.
Right? And he was still, I mean, talk about, he was like super cinnamon roll with a lot of angst at the same time. He's like, I just don't want you to die. Like, okay. Thank you. But in a real cinnamon roll way to say, but I also had this specific, I was thinking of you and wanted this like specifically made for you. I thought that was really cute.
Yeah, I like that too.
And okay, I'm going to also say the feelings on the mother. How's your feelings?
Oh my gosh. I have so many feelings. I I feel like it's a different trope to have like the mean like mother that's not like a stepmother for one thing.
Right. Yeah.
Because like I feel like a lot of times like the parents are dead, right? In these types of books.
Yeah.
Like
Or
tragically dead.
or it's like the guy and the father, like that kind of thing. They do a lot of those, but not necessarily the female and her parents.
Yeah,
Too
like
often.
yeah, usually it'll be the dad or something, right? That's like more mean, like after the wife dies, he just like doesn't care, like that sort of thing. So it was definitely different seeing like the mom being the really pushy, like distant one.
No emotions whatsoever.
Yeah, and also just like really nitpicky and just like kind of mean.
Yeah, she was like, there was nothing like talk about drill sergeant. There was nothing, there was no love. It was very just strict, like, just because you're my daughter, I'm going to treat you like everyone else, maybe even worse sometimes, you know, like that's what it seemed.
Yeah. But I also just wonder, like, how much does the mom know? Because, like, I talked to you a little bit about it, but I've seen, like, conspiracy theories, like, going around for this book. And, like, one of them is that, like, the dad was killed and, like, she either did it herself or she knows exactly what happened.
I feel like she had something because the way she's so just like, don't ever, don't be like him. And I think there's something he was probably part of pushing this and stuff because otherwise, why would the brother be there too? Like, obviously, there's something he knows.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be, obviously, I'm assuming in the second book, it's got to be a reveal somehow that there's that.
Yeah, because we've started like unraveling a little bit that like the good guys are probably not the good guys and like the bad guys are probably not the bad guys. So I just we need way more reveals going into the second book of like who actually knows what things.
Yeah. Also Dane. That's what it was, right? I was listening to an audiobook, so it's hard to know for sure, like without seeing the spelling, how names. So Dane. From the get-go, I was even telling my husband, I'm like, obviously, Mr. Rule Follower is actually going to be like not so wonderful. Like, I can't bend any rule for any reason. Like, of course, there's something shady there.
Yeah. Yeah, like I convinced my husband to buddy read this book with me. And so we were reading it at the same time. And the second Dane came like onto the page and like that like first interaction they had, I immediately turned to him. I was like, I hate this guy. And he's like, why? He's like, he's nice. He's trying to protect her, all these things. I'm like, no, just watch.
No.
He's gonna be terrible.
Right? He immediately tries to push her, get her out of the academy and stuff. I'm like, no, there's something shady going on. He is a turd. I don't like him.
I immediately was like, I do not like this guy.
Yeah. And the whole kiss thing, I'm like, no, none of it's okay. Doesn't feel right.
Well, you can just like get her memories through touch. So now you just go back and question every single time he touched her.
Right. I know. And when that came out, kind of like with the power, and then when she was with the whole she almost died thing, and then they burned Amber and stuff like that, even all of that, I thought he was gonna get a lot out of her there. Like I thought he was gonna be, but it didn't. She was able to like close it off and keep it and stuff. But I thought that's where he was gonna turn, honestly.
Yeah.
And in front of everyone, you're gonna see like, whoa, he's the bad guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, no, otherwise the book, I mean, to me, I did have to say one thing, not that I want to just knock anything. I gave it 5 stars, so I loved it. I will continue. I thought it was fantastic. But I told you that I took a week off of reading for personal reasons. And so I started the book and I wanted to just straight through binge it. And that is the best way for anybody who's still listening to this and hasn't read it yet. If you are, that is 100% the best way to read this book, straight through. Like, don't read anything else. Just read this one as fast as you can.
Yep.
Because the beginning otherwise feels kind of because of the academia stuff. And she's such a weakling in the beginning, and everyone seems to be attacking her. And every page there seems to be death, and stuff like that too. It seems a little bit leggy and drug out in the beginning. But when you read it all together, because that second half, when she gets those dragons, and that whole dragon scene, not just her, but everybody getting their dragons, at that and after is just fantastic. No way it would be a 5-star.
Yeah, I gave it 5 stars as well. And like I told you, I read it in like a day. So I did just binge it. And I think that really is the way to go because, it does kind of lag a little bit there in the beginning. But like once you get more into the dragons and stuff, it's just like off to the races. Like it's great.
Well, because I think that's with any book where there's like big training and like that kind of stuff. As much as it's fun to read, when there's a lot of it, it becomes kind of like repetitive, especially if it's someone who's getting beat up all the time. So that would be the only thing about the beginning. But I also understand why it happened, because it's also like, then she had this great dragon who connected with her because she is fierce. She's just tiny and was not thinking that she was going to be a dragon rider. So she's hasn't been training,
Yeah, where it's helpful to show like how low she was, and then you can see how stronger she became, and like also the confidence that she got too, which was pretty cool. So yeah, it is kind of necessary, but because like coming straight out of the gate like super strong isn't always like super fun to read because you're like, okay, this person's way overpowered. Like
right. It is. It's like they have to be knocked down, and that's I agree with that too. And then but I did like that kind of from the get-go, even though she was constantly having threats and constantly being beat up. I love the poison part. That gave me Jude Duarte vibes with the Cruel Prince all the way. And that's one of my all-time favorite characters. So I was like, that's awesome. I like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with you.
Yeah. Like she obviously was like, I'm very smart. I know things and I'm going to use this to my advantage because there's no other way I can survive otherwise. Yeah. So I like it. I like that.
I love that Xaden like saw basically from the beginning and was just kind of like, okay, you're just going to keep doing this, and just like called her out on it. I thought that was hilarious.
I did too. I thought that was funny as well. But he wasn't like, he was kind of like angsty about it, but he was also like, go you in a way, but just don't be dumb.
Yeah. He was proud of her, I guess, for doing that. And he thought it was really funny, I think. But he also was like, that's not going to save you on a battlefield. So like you need to train so you don't die because I don't want you to die.
Yeah. And that was always his thing, obviously. He was always like, you need to learn how to fight for yourself. You need to learn how to do it. You need to strengthen and like close combat and like all that stuff. He'd always be taking, I love the scene where he takes all of her daggers and like real quick, swift, like no problem whatsoever. I was like, that was a funny scene. I like that. And she's just like, well, I don't even know what just happened.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah. So like I said, even though the beginning to me, that would be the only, it felt a little bit like, oh, here we go, there's still funny parts and good parts and stuff like that as well. But do you have any more? I mean, I feel like we could probably go on about this one, but I also feel like we probably just said all the big major spoil parts.
Yeah. There is one thing that I'm curious on what your opinion would be for going into book 2. So like Dane, we know he can like get recent memories through touch. He likes to like touch her face a lot when he sees her, that sort of thing.
Right.
And she just kind of assumes that he's not going to go prying. But I think he was pretty much every time. And so, like, do you think he knows about the feather tails?
I'm not sure. So to me, this is how I think. So I do think that he was probably always trying to get a little feel, a little something out of her, but I don't think he really tried until after the whole Amber thing. I think if we were to reread and look back, I bet there was a lot more desperation to touch her and stuff after that. Because every time that he would talk to her after that, it was always like he's rushing to come find her. He's quickly like that. So it's a good possibility he could have, but I also feel like she was, I mean, obviously there's going to be something. I feel like there's going to be something that he does know. But I don't know if it's going to be quite that big, but it could be. It definitely could be.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am too, is like I think that it's a possibility, but I do think he knows something that he definitely shouldn't, and she for sure would not have told him. So but I'm really nervous if he does know about the feather tails, because that would just be devastating for the second book if, like, you know, he goes to superiors, that general that just seems like terrible, and like tells them about it. Like, I'm
well,
honestly,
and even her mother. So I could see, honestly, I don't ever see her mom being ever at all the type that's going to be like, oh yeah, my two children are on that. And she's always going to be a good, like, since they're on that side, they're no longer her children. You know what I mean? That's how I see the mom being. And I would not be surprised if in book 2, at some point, Dane becomes like her sidekick. You know what I mean? Side by side, like her big general person or something, you know?
Yeah, I could for sure see that.
Yeah. That's
Especially if he feels like he was betrayed by Violet for, like, joining the rebels. Like, you know, he's got a big complex. Like, he, you know, thinks that he's the best, and, you know, Violet is corrupted.
Yeah, he's exactly corrupted. He's always going to feel like, oh, but I'm on the right side, so I'm going to do everything the best way and stuff. So I could see him just being that really, like, major a-hole and getting his way in there, especially with after the Amber thing. Like, obviously none of us believe that he really truly cared for Violet at all. I don't think so anyways. No. I think it was like, oh, they had this connection and like that kind of stuff from childhood, but I don't think it was ever there was no romantic feelings. He wanted the other one. And so then when that was gone, I think that was I think that's where he honestly turns bad guy. And it will always be, it's obviously just going to get worse from there. And then with her betrayal, I could see him just bringing that back, you know? Look what you did. That's where you started calling her like the traitor, the bad one, that stuff.
Yeah, I feel like for him moving forward, he's going to be more like the big bad guy, because, like, he's just going to keep digging himself deeper into this whole rule following and, like, trying to have that moral superiority, and it's going to be personal with Violet.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that's going to get ugly real fast, I think.
Yeah, I'll be interested. I mean, personally, I would love it. I would love to see him, the mom and him, be like side by side. I do wonder about a few other things too, but mostly I kind of would like to see them as the two big bad people for a while. Not like one of those where they rise and then they're dead in the second book and then somebody else takes the place. I would like to see that kind of be like the big thing, the ultimate bad guy who they have to kind of hurdle over.
Right. And what a big hurdle, like your mom and your, like, childhood best friend. Like, that's crazy.
It is crazy. And I think that's why I'm into it so much, because I'd be like, oh my God, what is going on? And how I can never imagine, you know, but I don't know if you do this, even if you're like totally the opposite of how the main character is, but I'm always like, but I'm going to put myself in their shoes. And then what I got to be like thinking like them and stuff while I'm reading, you know? So I think that would be really cool because that makes it more shocking. It makes it more like, oh my gosh, heart moments.
Yeah, and more impactful too, because like fighting your family is just like got so many issues and like all these like internal battles, like even with just all the external things going on. So
well, and like I guess we could go back to the whole dad thing. The dad is definitely, I don't think he's alive. I definitely don't think he's going to do the whole brother thing like, oh, surprise, I've been here all along too. I think he's gone. And I think it was something to do, like he figured something out where the mom was actually in the wrong when the whole, when Zayden's dad was doing all this stuff. I bet it comes out a little bit more that the dad figured it out, that is actually like the mom and whoever the mom was with at the time. I don't know. There's so much like backstory we still need to kind of uncover, obviously. But that's what I think. And then she got rid of him. That's what I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like he figured out something, knew something, and then like the brother also figured that out, and then that's why he decided to leave, because it had to be something huge for like golden child, like brother who's like really good at everything to like actually leave and like fake his death. Like that's
well, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was he left because he knew that what the mom did, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And just left.
Yeah.
Or it would be him next, you know, like that kind of stuff.
God, I definitely would make her a total like crazy tyrant, wouldn't it?
I guess that's how I see her already. To me,
she's just gonna like take out all of her family members because they're just like not
on her side. Yeah, in agreement. No, I just see her every time that she was, even from the get-go, when she was like pushing her poor child who was like, I'll never make it. And she's like, don't care if you don't make it, you know? You're gonna be a writer. This is what you're not gonna be bookish, you're not gonna be a scribe, you're not doing any of that, you know? When she was just so adamant, right away I was like,
Yeah. I wonder if, now I'm thinking about it, if she maybe had another motive for doing that. Like, because he probably had some notes and stuff, right, that he maybe kept hidden. Maybe she was afraid that if Violet became a scribe, she could find them and learn what he knew.
Well, because I'm trying to think if there was something I missed, but I don't think so. When she goes and starts on like digging stuff up, she tries to learn about the wyverns and stuff, and she's like, this is odd that none of these are here. Remember?
Yeah, there's nothing there. So
I wonder if that's her mom getting rid of all that stuff, you know?
Yeah, well, maybe not like her mom, like specifically, but like the whole like upper military is probably like yanking all those things. And the only thing that's left is that like random fairy tale book that her dad gave her.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's all just seems too connected. So I do feel like there is something bigger where her mom pushed her and was like, you won't be that kind of a person, you're going to be a writer. And that's it.
Or you're going to die. So.
Or you're going to die. Yeah, because I'm a tyrant in that way. Yeah. No, but I like that. And I also said to my husband too, I go, even though I do feel that the beginning was a little slow, the ending was awesome, the dragons were great, I think it's one of those books that obviously it's already loved, but I think it's because we all know it's one of those books. It reminds you of like Hunger Games and Divergent and stuff, where the beginning books were all about like this person who shouldn't have won, went up against all odds, and then it becomes a way bigger story in the end, you know?
Yeah, the whole like rebellion, like bad guys are actually like the good ones, like that whole thing, and then it just balloons, and there's this big huge conspiracy thing going on, and it definitely reminds me of like the 2010s.
It really does. And that's why I told my husband as well, I was like, I think that's why this is so predictable, because we've seen these types of stories before but in a good way. It's that predictable that makes me want to keep going. Like, oh, this is good. I miss this. Because you don't.
It's nostalgic a little bit.
Yeah. Like right from the get-go, you get those vibes, I felt. And I definitely missed them. I'm like, I like this. But then it cranks up the heat though, too, you know?
Yeah.
So then it gives you still what we like nowadays, too.
Yeah, Divergent didn't have a scene like that.
No, it didn't.
Blowing out the freaking window.
I know, she's setting the curtains on fire with her lust. Like, oh, okay. All right. Yeah. No, that was I thought that whole scene was perfect. Like I said before, I thought it was perfect because he was even though it's like this massive like love scene, he was such a cinnamon roll in that through the entire thing, you know? Yep, and then with the powers. Yeah, and then you bring in, she's like lighting things on fire and there's like a storm raging outside. He's like covering them in shadows. I'm like, oh, okay.
They're quite the pair. Like you'll always know when they're doing something.
I know. That's what I was
storm out of nowhere.
I was thinking the same thing. I was like, I thought there was gonna actually be more to it. And again, I did read the last 2 hours, I guess, last so much on 2.5. So I did go back and try and listen to it a little bit more because as much as I can focus during that, I also feel like there could easily be something I missed. So maybe I did miss something. But I was in my head during that. I'm like, someone's going to see something. Someone's going to know. Like, you know what I mean? This is going to be a thing. But yeah, no, I did. I loved all that. And I hope I can only see number 2 being even more like, even though there's going to be, she's obviously going to be upset and stuff. Mm-hmm. She's not going to be upset for forever. She's going to turn around.
I really want to see her rip him a new one, if I'm being honest. I want to see her get so mad and just like punish the heck out of him.
Yeah.
I want to see
I have a feeling
just brawling hands and knees.
Yeah. I think it'd be funny too if the dragons even were like, even though there's obviously a mated pair and they're so in love and stuff, but even they kind of had a little bit like, he needs to learn his lesson or whatever. So
or they do do like a parent trap situation.
Oh yeah, where the female dragon's like, if you ever did that, I'd be mad too. Yeah, that'd be funny.
Yeah.
Anyways, I just feel like okay, actually, brain thought here. So what are some of the others? So obviously I didn't get into conspiracies. I was trying to ignore anything about it for the last few days. So what are some of the other ones that you've heard?
So it was mostly about like how often Dane would like touch her and like what does he know exactly. And then also just like some stuff with the brother, like what exactly did he figure out? Like, does the mom actually know that he's still alive, but she's just like working on trying to kill him? Or like maybe she's not actually, like maybe she's like a sleeper agent where she's like had to do all these bad things, but she's like really just trying to
more like just an like an infiltration kind of thing. She's just right. Okay. I don't know if that, I could see something like that too, but I am setting the mom up for a total tyrant here.
Yeah. It just seems kind of weird to me that like nobody has gone and like bulldozed that, because they built the city back up again, right? The one that kind of got destroyed. It seems like none of the like military has gone and like checked on that and like destroyed it again to like knock them back down or anything.
Yeah, I thought that was a little confusing as well.
It feels very like District 13 from the Hunger Games.
Yeah. Or where there was yeah, you're right. See, it's been so long. I'm like, is that the right one? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. I could see that too. I didn't think about that. But then I also could see, like, you brought up the army, and maybe their army, they're just so surrounded. Like, yeah, they built it up and stuff, but maybe there's something she's not quite saying that they can't get in there anymore or something, because the army is so big.
Yeah, maybe they have a protection thing going on.
Yeah. They've got someone, I mean, there's all kinds of magic and wielding going on. So maybe they've got someone who's like Bella, where they can like protect everybody, and they can't get in. Never know.
Yeah, well, and they also teamed up with the Griffins, so like maybe they have something that is different than what the dragons do. So, or maybe
I'm really excited for
afraid of the Griffins. Like, who knows?
I am so excited about I mean, obviously there is something with the Griffins where they don't want to get too close and stuff like that, because they knew that all these weird attacks were going on, but not really doing a whole lot. I mean, yeah, they were sending people, but I feel like if they thought it was such a big rebellious threat or that kind of stuff, they would have been more on it.
Yeah, like they really didn't go out of their way to attack the Griffins. It was always the Griffins came to them, and then they defended.
Exactly. So I do find, so there's just a whole lot. There's a lot where this is like, that's why it is fun though too. And that's why I think it's going to be one of those books where obviously it starts off great, but I can only see like this one becomes a 4 to me because everything else was so amazing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I could see that happening.
Yeah, I feel like it's just gonna balloon and just you're gonna be like, I can't believe that was the first book, because like so much more has happened.
Yeah, and it's just better and better. I can definitely see that. Hunger Games to me was one of those that I read those in like a week. I remember reading them after, I think I finally read them when the 3rd book came out. That's when, right? Is there 3 or 4? Gosh, now I can't remember. I'm too old.
3.
So long ago. 3.
I think it's 3.
Yeah, because I was reading them on the very first Kindle readers and like that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember zooming, and I waited until the 3rd book came out, and then I just zoomed all the way through in a week's time. And they were so good. And it was and the first one was so different than the rest of them. You know what I mean? Because you're like in the actual Hunger Games, it's like children versus children and all this stuff, but then it's like, whoa, now we're in a total different section. We're in this whole war zone and all these rebellion things going on. Don't worry, I'll edit that part out. It was where all of a sudden it was like this whole different thing. And then by the end of it, it's basically comes down, they're in the city, in this whole new world, basically, where there's booby traps and Indiana Jones type crazy stuff going on. And sad stuff. That book, I just remember being like, this one is ripping me apart.
Yeah, you just get to the end and then you kind of think back to the beginning. You're like, how did we get here?
Right. It was so wild. And all the stuff that goes on with PETA, I just remember being like, holy cow, this guy has been through so much. And then at the end,
really got put through it.
Yeah, and then at the end, she still has to wake up reminding him, and stuff this is real. And I love that series.
Mm-hmm.
So good. And I can see this one being where we started here at an academy, and it's only gonna get way bigger, and who knows where it's gonna end up, in a big fortress in a mountain and somewhere. Who knows?
Because right now it's pretty small stakes, right? They're just doing academy things, learning and training and stuff. And yeah, they have the stuff with the wyverns and the griffins and things, but I feel like it's just gonna spiral from there.
Oh,
and, yeah.
It's going to be madness. I can feel it. And that's what gets me excited. And so I really, really hope that book 2 is as soon as I think it is.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah. And then I will eventually, I mean, from what I've heard, I haven't even tried since I read it on audiobook, but from what I've heard, all of Fourth Wing is still out of stock. No one can really find it.
Yeah, I think it just kind of varies like by your location or if you are lucky. But yeah, it's kind of hard to get a copy of it.
Well, I'm hoping that by the time book 2 comes out, then I can just get them both and have them on one of my shelves somewhere, so that so that I can show them off, because I know book 2, I just have a feeling in my gut, in my soul, that it's going to be like one of my favorite books. I have a feeling that it's just going to be like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's gonna be good. I mean, the cover, like the I don't know what that's called, but the little like slogan or something, it's "Burn It Down."
Oh, that's right. Yep.
I love that.
I like that. I mean, I like this simple tag too, because it goes perfect for it was fly or die.
Yeah.
That was perfect for the academy, you know?
Yeah,
they're like,
absolutely.
How many times do they say that? Like, a dragon will live on, but if what is it? If a rider dies, the dragon will live on, but if the dragon dies, the rider dies, something like that. Yeah. Because that's the whole thing with, obviously nobody really wants to talk about the sad part that happened with Leon. I know.
I was crying a little bit because he was one of my favorites. He's such a sweet boy.
I know. And the funny thing is, I knew that from people's reactions, something sad was coming. Mm-hmm. I didn't expect it to be him. I never once thought it was going to be him. I 100% thought that it was going to be that she was going to drain. I can't think of the golden dragon. I thought that. Yeah. I thought that's what was going to happen, that she was going to have to freeze the time to the point where the dragon was like, sacrifice me, that kind of a thing. I thought that's what was going to happen, honestly.
That would be really sad.
I know. That's why I was like, oh, ouch, because that was probably one of my favorite characters. I loved that dragon so much. So I obviously didn't want to, but I was seeing people crying. And so I'm like, that seems like this would be a horrific thing that would make me cry and stuff. And so, I'm sorry, Liam, I did not cry, but my heart hurt. And it will probably forever hurt. So
I just love him so much. And I was also upset because like she had saved him once or twice before. So I just kept waiting. I was like, she's going to save him again. She's already done it. Like, why would you keep saving this person if he's just going to die?
Right. Well, and the thing is, it didn't even come down to, she technically saved him, but it was like
the dragon.
When the dragon was just like shredded or whatever happened. And that was just like, oh my goodness. So that was hurtful. Again, it takes a lot for me to cry, especially if I'm on 2.5 speed.
Right.
Yeah. But like I said, I was still like, oh my goodness, why? And just the way she was like trying to, get him to the dragon and like that stuff. That was the heart-wrenching part.
Yeah, that was sad. That was a very sad moment. And then when Xaden went up to him too and just like, they're brothers. Like,
it was. And I thought that was also a good way. I mean, props to the writer for that, because that was a good way to, even though there was this big like betrayal and that kind of stuff, in the end, it was a good way to bring them together with a connection,
Yeah.
To be like, we still have this, like, we cared about this person, and I need you, you need him, that stuff, Yeah. So,
yeah.
I thought that was done well. And I know you want the fight, but I kind of want them to, obviously, she's got to put him in his place, but not for long. Like, just get together. Be fine.
Yeah, like, I want them to like get together eventually, but I want her to put him through hell first.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I think most of us do want. He deserves that. Yeah, for sure.
He does.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure what more I have to say, but I know both you and I do want to talk about underrated books as well. Some of our favorites. Yeah. So we agree that that one is one of our top favorites. And I think the rest of the series, without it even being written, is going to be a top-notch series. But we want to kind of, well, maybe I'll let you go first. And we'll see if we have any of the underrated books the same, which could, I mean, most of us read a lot of books. So
yeah,
it would be. But we're just gonna maybe say our top few underrated books and why we think it deserves a little bit more love and why it's so deep in our hearts. Mm-hmm. So I'll let you go first.
Okay. Should I just go through my list of 5?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, well, these aren't in any order because to put them in order would make me sad. So they're just random. But the first one I really want to talk about is Virals by Kathy Reichs.
Okay. So explain that one a little.
Yeah, so Kathy is that's what inspired Bones, the TV show Bones.
Okay.
So she writes like adult murder mystery, like forensic kind of books. Nice. But this one is a young adult. And I just love it because the found family in this is really, really good. And that's one of my favorite tropes. Mm-hmm. But also it's just so unique because these kids like get like wolf DNA like into them somehow. And like that sounds crazy, but like it's actually done really well to where like I'm like scientifically minded and like I kind of believe it. And they just like are this pack, and then they happen to just like solve mysteries and stuff.
Oh, so that's where the found family comes in.
Yeah,
huh? Yeah. That's cool. That does sound interesting. So that must be kind of an older series then?
Yeah, it's a little bit older. I think I read it in like 2017 or something like that. But it's still one of my favorites. I really loved it. Yeah.
Well, that's a good one. Okay, we could bounce back and forth if you want.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so the first one that I have on my list, and I feel the same way. It's just more of how I kind of came across them as I was writing them or thought of them. But this is one that I recommend all the time. And if anyone is like a mythology lover, put it on your list now. But it's The Witch's Heart by Genevieve. Now, I don't know how to say her last name, but it's Gornacek, possibly. I hope I didn't screw that up because I absolutely love her. I've been wanting to read some of her other books as well. And I know she's got another one, I think, coming out really soon. But The Witch's Heart is the best. So Loki, obviously, is Norse mythology. And there's so much just lore and stories. He was the trickster and all this. But this one shows the softer side. So like Loki was in love with a giantess or whatever, Angerboda. And it shows, and then they're the ones who basically have the babies who bring on Ragnarok and like all that, like the giant sea serpent and the giant wolf who swallows like a bunch of the gods, and then Hel. And then she was the one, she's got like half of her face is like human, half of her face is like decayed, and that was their daughter. And it shows their connection through all of this, how he would always come back to her, kind of like she was like his true love, and they always had this connection. And then what was really cool is it went deeper into Angerboda's kind of like lore and stuff like that, which I'm not sure if it was 100% true or not. I haven't looked into it. But I thought that was super interesting. And it goes all the way to like the Ragnarok. And then you also get, so you get you get a taste of all the other gods and stuff too. But it's really Angerboda's story. It's through her eyes. And so in a lot of the stories, she's seen as, because the giants were always seen as like the bad guys in the Norse mythologies and stuff. So it's cool to see that, and she put her in like she was a human who was in love, and just because they had these monster-esque children didn't mean that they still spoke like children. They were still hers to take care of, and love, and theirs together. And so I found that writing just beautiful, and the story never was bored, for it just being that kind of a mythology, almost like a mythology fairy tale. That kind of stuff. It still keeps you going. It was still, something was always happening. So that's one that I am always like, especially if anyone says mythology, I'm always like, put this on your list because it's so good.
Yeah, I've seen that one around actually, and I had no idea that it was Norse mythology. I just saw like Witch's Heart, and I figured it was about witches.
Yeah. So this is what the cover, I always feel like I should, if I have it, I should show the cover too, so then know what I'm talking about. But that's the Witch's Heart, and it's one of the best Norse mythology ones that I've ever read, if not the best, in my opinion. It was so good. Probably the only other one that I would maybe put up, but a lot of people love that, is I think it's literally just called Norse Mythology by Neil Gaiman.
I've read that one.
Yeah.
That one's really good.
That one is good. Again, one of those where it's got multiple stories that you've already heard of, but it was written so well that it just keeps you going. And I think I read that one in like 2 days. It was just like, didn't want to stop. And again, it has one of my favorite, which is Loki's as well. Loki and his actual god wife, goddess or whatever, Sigyn, and how she, like, even through everything that he put her through, even she knows about Angerboda and all these kids, she's holding up the water so it doesn't drop on his head through the whole time that he's like chained up and stuff. Anyways, I love it. I love mythology. It's so great. Okay. I'll let you go.
It's just too easy to like go off on these like super underrated books that we love.
It is just and you know, anything that we love bookish wise, we could just ramble on for forever. That's why we have accounts dedicated to this.
So that we can ramble on forever.
Exactly. And it's not a weird, people aren't just staring at you funny. They're like, yeah, I feel the same.
Tell me more.
Okay, I'll let you go on with your next one.
Okay. My next one is Shadow of the Fox by Julie Kagawa.
Okay.
First off, I love Julie. All the books I've read by her are fantastic, but this one is just so special because it's inspired by, I'm pretty sure, mostly Japanese like mythology. So there's like kitsune and like demon spirits and like all these things, and it is so freaking good.
And that was YA, right? So I have that on my TBR. I think most of what she writes is always YA.
Yeah, right? It is, but it usually has a little bit more of a new adult feel to it. Like, the writing style is a little bit older, but it doesn't, they never have any like explicit scenes.
Right. Yeah.
But there still is like violence and like some gore sometimes, but there's never anything that's like sexual or anything like that. It's all very tame in that regard. But I would say that it writes and reads a little bit older.
Okay. Because I've seen that one. I mean, I read her, I can't even, Talon, is that the one?
Yeah, I read
that. Yeah. So, and that's been a while, but I really like that one. And then I've seen those all over the place. Like, there's a lot of people who, like, either you've never heard of them, I feel like, or you super hype them. So that's a good one. I would agree with that one, and I haven't even read it.
Yeah, and then it also has a really good found family again. Like, that's one of my all-time favorite tropes. So if a book has that, I'm just a total sucker for it. But like, it just gets kind of this like ragtag group of like weirdos together. that like don't fit together at all, but just kind of like came together.
Yeah, they work together.
Yeah, and then by the end, they're total tight-knit family, and like there's some really sad parts, there's some really funny parts, but the ending is just totally heart-wrenching, but also at the same time.
That's a series, right?
Yeah, it's 3 books. Yeah.
Okay. That's good to know. Okay, I will push that up higher. I'm like having a horrible reading year though, but I'll push that one higher up on my list. I want to say No, I don't think I do. I thought maybe I had it on my one shelf, but I know that I have looked at it several times, that one, because there's someone else who talks about it all the time. And so it does sound, and that's something I've been wanting. So talk about mythology and stuff, lore. I do not know very much about the Asian lores and stuff. So I've really been wanting to read more books and get more into that because my son actually really finds that interesting, those stories and stuff. So he'll tell me like a name and I'll be like, I've never heard of that one. I'm like, looks like I need to learn, like read into that. So that's good to know.
Yeah, then I definitely recommend Shadow of the Fox because it had just so many good creatures and lore, and it was just fantastic.
That's awesome. I'm actually gonna go to the bottom of my list, but like I said, there's no particular order, but I'm gonna throw this one out because I think you've read this one too.
Okay.
A Ruin of Roses by K.F. Breene.
Yep.
I think that whole series is, I put it on my list just for humor alone. It's a super unique take on Beauty and the Beast, like a Beauty and the Beast type retelling, but he's like a dragon shifter instead of just like a beast or something like that. And I read it more than a year ago. And I just binged all three. I read them around the time when that third book came out. So whenever that was, that's about the time that I read them. And there is one character who's supposed to kind of be like Clogsworth, who is
the butler, right?
Yeah. He's the funniest character. He says the most outlandish, like, what did he just like? I remember like highlighting these things just because I wanted to say them to my husband later. And I'm like, it is hilarious because for those who don't know what the book is about is, yes, it's like a retelling, but it's a spicy retelling. And what happens is the castle is under the spell of a succubus. And so everyone cannot stop themselves from just
going at
it all the time. And so it's so much so that they're just like nonchalant about it. So the Clogsworth guy is always like, oh, sorry, I was just out of raging, whatever. Like, I feel like I can't say it on YouTube, but you have to, if this is something that you're into, you have to read it because she did it so well with such humor. And then also brought in real sentimental moments between, especially the, I can't remember his name for the life of me, but the main male character, he had some really deep sentimental moments, almost like the, how they did it with the live action. I don't know why I couldn't think of that. The live action version of Beauty and the Beast, where they made the little boy have like a big connection with his mom and like that stuff. And then it was like the dad turned him into spoil. They have like some of those kind of moments where it's like he was taught to turn off the sensitive part of him. Like he does this thing where he can sing and like bring these flowers to life or something. I'm trying to remember, even though I've read it. But anyways, it was written very well for a spicy retelling, but still keeping as true to the tale as you could, I guess. And the lady who plays Beauty is also a badass too. She's kind of like Violet in a way, you know. She was like very just like not gonna take any crap and very just like, even when she would get thrown down, she'd get right back up kind of stuff and always get in his space. And I will say one more thing. We all love a good spicy scene on a horse. So there is that.
Yes. Yes.
So that's how I feel about that book. It was very good.
The one horse trope is one of my favorites.
It is. It's just you can't go wrong with that one.
No.
We need a dragon one. That's what we need.
Dragon one. I don't think I have it. I have one that has like kind of dragons in it, but not really. It's more like beasts. It's called Storm of Chaos and Shadows by C.L. Breyer.
Okay, I think I read that one. Is this where they all have like weather type powers?
No, it's so this like big storm came through and like killed like all of human or most of humanity, and then like the Fae are like the bad guys kind of. Like there's this like prophecy with like a dragon and a phoenix and like a dark phoenix and all of this stuff. But just like kind of coming back to the like badass like main female character that like doesn't take no for an answer and is like kind of vicious, like that this book has that. Like
Nice.
she's like super bloodthirsty and it's great. Yeah, it also just has like the love interest kind of like jukes you around. So like at first you're like, oh, okay, yeah, this is nice. And then after like the broody Fae walks in and is just like, hey, love, you're like, all right, done with this guy here. Like, give me this big tall one.
Right? That's funny. Okay, I like that. I mean, I feel like that's how a lot of books are anymore too, especially when it comes to Fae and stuff, you know, where it's like instead of it used to be a love triangle where it was like, oh, but I love both of the broody and the goody one or whatever, you know. And now it's just more of like, let me start off with this character and then push him totally off to the side, and you're just going to jump into that character. And we all know when it happens, like, that's the one. Yeah. That's who we've been waiting for.
Like, okay, there we go. I knew something was off about this other one.
Right. Yeah. No, but that sounds good. I think the one I was thinking of is called, it's very like similar. It's like Storm of Chaos and something, but that one I should almost put that on my list as well, because I read those in December and I had never once read a story where it was like each person, like they were winter, they were summer, they were spring, not in Fae way. It was like they died and then they became these autumn, spring, winter and all that, and they each had to take on a new name that had to do, so like the winter main guy was Jack, and then the spring girl was Floor, and what it is it's kind of like Hunger Games-esque. So within their section of, so like United States fall, spring, how that would roll over for us, they had to hunt down, so winter had to hunt down, or spring had to hunt down winter for spring to happen each time. But then they just rejuvenate because they've already died in real life, you know?
Yeah.
And so then there's like a whole rebellion with that and everything too, because they don't want to continue to do that, you know? And a love story and stuff. So I guess I just threw in my next one. I'll just throw that in there.
That one sounds really familiar. I don't think I've read it, but I think I heard about that one and was like, wow, that's so unique. I really want to read that.
It really is. And I would 100% say read it in the winter months. To me, that is the best time to read it. I'm going to search it up really quick because...
Is it called like Seasons of the Storm or something like that?
Oh, that might be what it is.
I don't know.
You can go on with yours as I'm...
I know I have, because I know I have that book physically, so I just have to find it.
Oh, do you? It is really, I love, so it's this, Seasons of the Storm.
Okay, yeah.
Like Ellie Casimano, but I highly recommend that as well. And that's like YA, so you're not going to get like super spice or anything like that. But it is a really, and I believe it was 2 books, or at least I only read 2 books. And it's a really good love story with the rebellion and that kind of stuff. So
okay, yeah, because I remember thinking that one sounded really cool, but then of course it got lost and buried under
all and you're like, oh,
really cool.
Yeah, I know. So many books, so little time. That's like the thing. I'll let you go on since I kind of jumped in.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, Okay, so Found Family really is my favorite because all of these books I just realized have
No,
like
but I love
found
that.
family like their main trope. This one's called A Kingdom of Exiles by S.B. Nova. And it is seriously the single best example of found family I have ever read. It is amazing. It kind of feels like a D&D like campaign where these like random characters came together and they're all kind of goofy and like they definitely don't seem like they would fit together, but then they just do, and it's really entertaining.
That's awesome. See, and I love the found family trope too, but I feel like it's not something I seek out. But when I read it, I always love it. It's
Yeah.
so great. So these are great. What else what else happens in the book?
So like the main character is this human girl, and she basically gets kicked out of her village because like they think she did something really bad when obviously she didn't. And so she then gets taken to the Fae side of like the wall because they're separated. And she gets thrown into this military camp because otherwise she'd have to be a slave. And so she's like, I choose to join the military or whatever.
Yeah.
And so that's when she meets this like they're basically her bunkmates that she has to be with, and that's like who becomes like the little family. But again, it's like a lot of the training stuff that like Violet goes through. Like at first she's really weak, but it's all just very good, and you see her like gain so much confidence and so much strength, and then you realize that like maybe she's not actually a human. Like there's something
nice plot twist. Yeah. That's cool. Awesome. No, I didn't realize that there's Faye in there too. That's awesome. I like that. So I'll probably have to write that one down.
Yeah, and they're Faye that have wings.
Nice. See, that's what. So I play Sims, and I'm waiting for them to announce that we're gonna get fairies and stuff because I just want someone with wings.
Yeah,
that's what I want. I know, like sometimes we think that's just like pixies or certain types and stuff, but I'm like, when I think of like fairy creatures, that's what I want.
Yeah. And these are like veined, like more like leathery type wings, not the like cutesy, like glittery ones. Like these are like really
like
real deal.
Kind of or whatever. Like or is it more like bat wings in a way?
It's kind of more like they talk about them being scaled. So I think kind of like maybe sort of bat wings, but also kind of lizardy.
Gotcha.
But
see, and when I think of fairy creatures too, I just always like Holly Black's people to me are that's fae to me. Because they can have different colored skin. Some have wings, some have animal features. Like that's what I think of. Some are really short, some are really tall, like some are gross. And that's to me, I love that. I love that. So that's great.
Yeah. And that one is one I recommend the audiobook for. It is so good. I've listened to it 2 or 3 times, I think.
I am a serial rereader. When my brain can't, sometimes I get an overload of like, there's too many books that I want to read. So I'm just going to go into my favorite books, like that kind of stuff. So I get that, but I'll have to have you send me that book.
Yeah.
So I'll go in. My next one, I'm going to go into, I saw it around for quite a while, but then it stopped, and it's A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. And that one is like a really cool twist on Dracula where you actually get, so I read this in audiobook and I read it twice. It's really short. It's not very long, but you get it in one of the bride's point of view.
Okay.
And so what it is it starts off with how he saved her and brought her, and she's the one that's been there with him through the longest. But then he brings in, after a while, you get bored. So then of living a forever life. And so then he brings in another person. And at first she's like mad about it and hurt about it and stuff, like, why are you bored with me? And then this girl is very like out there, and I forget if she was like a countess or what she was, but she was like a higher up, and so she kind of knew what she was getting into.
Mm-hmm.
And she was ready for it, and she's like wild and fun. Well, then the girls, he's like super strict about what they can and can't do, kind of, because they're all vampires, and obviously you're talking like it's back when people really believed in vampires and stuff. And so he's like, you can't go out, and there's like streets of Italy, and then they go to France and all this. So it's really cool, kind of getting that old style of writing too. Mm-hmm. And then they bring in, eventually it's more like getting closer to like the turn of like 19th century and stuff. And they bring in a male, and he really kind of shakes up things. And he's young compared to the others as well. So then he's all like, why can't I bring other people in here? Like he's able to do whatever he wants. Why can't I, and that kind of stuff. So it's just really cool, because then I don't want to like go into what exactly happens, but the book ultimately is kind of like her final love letter to Dracula, kind of a thing. Huh. So it's really this like just old school style written, beautiful storytelling. Mm-hmm. And like a tragic love story, kind of, which you don't see very often anymore in like a poetic, beautiful way.
No, you really don't.
So yeah, and so that to me is an audiobook recommendation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know, because I've definitely heard of that one. But it wasn't super high on my list because I wasn't like really sure about it. But now that you're saying it's really good, especially audiobook.
And it could be like mood readers, we always read when it feels right. I would recommend it if you are a mood reader, read it during the fall. Read it Halloweenish time. That's when you should read it. That kind of, yeah.
Good idea. Yeah, because I always like something a little bit spookier, moodier around that time. So.
Yeah. I do a lot of witch books during then, which is, typical, I feel like, because I am 100%. And then if I read thrillers, that's the time. Thriller, horror, any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Murder mystery. Yeah.
You want to go in with your next one?
I think this is my last one that I had. And that is it's called the Eurona duology, but the first book is called The Great Hunt, by Wendy Higgins.
Okay.
And this one is one of my favorites because it has the competition for hand in marriage, which I think is really fun, kind of like the movie Brave.
Okay.
Where like she's the princess and like she kind of is reluctantly like joining this, and then like all these guys are like coming to like win her hand, but they're doing this because there's this like beast that's been like terrorizing her lands and is like killing a lot of people, and so they're basically just trying to get all these people to kill the beast, and then whoever kills the beast gets her.
Gotcha.
And so then she obviously like has a favorite that she kind of finds and like bugs him and is like, you're going to deal with my presence, even if you don't want to. And he kind of like begrudgingly likes her, which I think is really funny.
I like that. It's like almost like those old school knights going to slay the dragon to get the princess or whatever. Like that's almost what it sounds like. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. That's definitely how it like starts out, and then it just like gets crazy and you realize that there's this whole like extra deal going on, why these monsters are actually here and all this stuff. And there's this like group of people that have magic, but in this world like that's extremely forbidden, and like if you have magic you'll either be killed or like ostracized, and so like people who have it have to hide it. Which is like newsflash why there's beasts.
Oh, spoiler alert.
Yeah, you kind of like created your own issue by by doing that.
Right.
But
That's
yeah, the
cool.
main characters are just so good, and Arity is the princess, and she's like the definition of fiery princess. And so
Okay.
I just love her.
Yeah. So it is like very Merida vibes.
Yeah. And I think it's even inspired, like a lot of the names and stuff sound like Scottish and or
Okay.
Irish or something like that. So, and then
Well,
the audiobook is like Scottish or something, like accents. So it definitely is that.
that makes sense because if you think about a fiery princess who's really gonna fight, you would think like a lot of them do. Like even you could go into like George R.R. Martin Game of Thrones kind of style. The ones in the north were always a little bit more thicker accents, and those were definitely the females who were not going to stand for just being pushed to the side, and stuff. So I get that. I can see why that would be chosen as the feisty princess.
Yeah. So that one's one of my favorites, and it has a happily ever after, which I enjoy. So.
Yeah. It is nice to get that once in a while. It really is.
Have because like something satisfying at the end.
Yeah, because we all obviously love a good enemies to lovers, but I have to say the last few months, it's actually been more of like, I like when it's like, not really friends to lovers either, but not when it's so like moody and stuff in the I like when it just kind of comes together nice, almost like a Bridgerton style, because even if they were like, they're not technically enemies, they're just usually like
right.
a little angry because people are making me do this stuff.
Yeah, more like reluctant allies.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
And that's definitely what this one has, is like reluctant allies, or like hate to love you, like I'm upset that you're going on me, like kind of vibes.
Yeah. No, I like that. I've been feeling more that kind of thing lately, where it's not so much like we're out to kill each other and like that kind of stuff, but that we're both not happy to be here. But then eventually there's like romance and love. And happily ever after.
Yeah.
So I'll just say I actually have two more, but since that was your last one and we're going on an hour and a half, I'll just go into the two that I told you that I was just going to kind of combine, which is the George R.R. Martin ones. Obviously, everybody talks about A Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones. They love it. And he's written like sci-fi ones too. I haven't read those yet, but I have to say, everybody rags on this book, Fire and Blood. They always say that it was so boring, so overly like drawn out. But I loved it. But I think it's because I'm a history nerd, and it read like a beautiful, like I'm learning about a whole new world and the history of their kings. And you got all these backstories of not only the kings that you've heard of, like from the series and that kind of stuff. And obviously this is only book one. So then you go into like Mad King and stuff in another book. That I'm hoping he eventually gets out, but he's got a lot of books to get out still. But that one, I personally absolutely loved it because you got such a deep history. And that one probably really is where I fell in love with his writing and would ultimately say he's my favorite of all time, because I was like, boom, my mind is blown. Who can come up with this much backstory of a fake world? You know what I mean? Like just make it all up, and like these characters, and then within these characters, not only the kings, but he's got like the people who were his hands and the wives and it goes on forever, which is why I can see why people are like, I just learned history. It was so drawn out. But I'm like, this is amazing.
Yeah. Well, and I so admire authors who like do all of that and then can keep track of all of it too.
Yeah.
Because they really do just like create a whole new history, which is insane.
Yeah, history, magic systems, towns, lands, cities, different. Oh my gosh, it's wild. It is so wild.
It's gotta be like some notebook that like keeps track of all of that.
I know. Well, and then it makes you also be like, no wonder it takes these people years and years to write because it's like they're literally coming up with everything brand new. Every single thing is just in their brains, you know, and would take a while. But so that's my other, or that's like my last one. And I could also say, so my favorite book of all time is by him as well. Like I love that one, and I'm only bringing up Fire and Blood. Like that one I put on the list for sure. Was just because I've seen so many people rag about it, but I have to be like, but for me, it's underrated and needs all the praise. But this is actually like my favorite book of all time, which is A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. And it tells a story of Dunk and Egg, which is Egg ends up becoming a Targaryen king down the road. And you hear in Game of Thrones, you hear people talk about Sir Dunk the Tall all the time, how he was like the knight everybody looked up to and like that kind of stuff. So it talks about their kind of little shenanigans that so basically Egg goes, they shave his hair so nobody knows that he's of a Targaryen background, you know, and then he wanders the land with this hedge knight and stuff and learns from him and stuff. So it's really interesting. And it's just one of those, talk about old fashioned fairy tales, but with George R. R. Martin twists and dragon eggs and stuff like that. So yeah, so those are my final ones. And again, I think we've talked about how bookish people could go on and on and on. But
we are a never-ending fountain of information and books.
I know, it is. We could just, I mean, you just say book recommendation and we're like, yes, here is a whole stack of like what we recommend.
Yeah, I get asked sometimes, like people like slide into my DMs and they're like, hey, I love your page. Could I have some book recommendations? I'm like, oh boy, you're not ready for this. What do you want? And I think I scare them a little bit because I'll give them like 15 book recommendations.
It's same here. And it's funny. So one of my friends from college actually like hit me up a few days ago and was like, I could use some help for some book recommendations. And my heart just started being like, this is what I live for. This is why, you know, this is like my favorite thing of all time. And so I remember being like, okay, we don't talk very often, so I have to tone it down a little bit. But I gave her like 4 different things. And then I'm like, and here's the screenshot, like super nerdy. Here's the screenshot of the cover and the author name so that you specifically know which one. She was thankful for it. And I'm like, please, even if you hate the book, let me know if you read them, just because that's like what makes us so happy, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing better than somebody coming back to you and be like, hey, I read that book you recommended. It was so good. Like, that's just, it's just pure euphoria is what that is.
It is. It is. And even if people don't like it, because I'm so lenient, like I get it, not everyone's going to like it. I just get like a high from being like, you actually listened to me? Like you took my recommendation? I'm sorry that it didn't work out, but how cool. Thanks.
Yeah.
But I think we have probably chatted look, I can't even talk anymore. I think I'm done for the night. But I think this went really well. Thank you for coming on and talking Fourth Wing and dragons. And I think we gave people some really good books that are very much underrated. So
yeah, I agree. Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun. It just was like a great chat. Like
just like talking to an old friend. That's why I love this podcast. Yeah, I love this. I always tell people when they're coming on, I'm always like, no reason to really prep. We just kind of go with the flow and talk, because to me, that's what it's about. It's getting to know someone I've already connected with even better, you know, because we don't often get to do stuff like this. We kind of just text or message or comment and stuff. So I appreciate when people want to come on and I get to, know you guys better. So
yeah, well, let me know if you ever want me again, because this was really fun. So I would definitely do it again.
I will. I'll hit you up and we'll do an actual buddy read.
Yeah.
Like this one was kind of like but it went well. It went really well.
Yeah,
so
it did.
yeah. But yeah, I will definitely hit you up for another time, and I will sure be talking to you anyways. So all right, thank you. I'm gonna say goodbye. All right. Yeah.
Bye.